introduce your mindfulness with police officers program in Sri Lanka.
Ah, how wonderful.
He was celebrating the moment and wanted to share, wanted
Uh,
me to share that with you.
oh, great. Thank you for conveying the message to me. We will discuss this. Now we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So let us begin our bi-weekly sutra discussion by paying respect to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Word One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, dear friends in Dhamma who are watching us on YouTube and Facebook, we would like to welcome all the Venerable monks and nuns to this bi-weekly sutra discussion. And also we would like to welcome all our lay devotees who are joining us in YouTube and Facebook to this unique discussion with the Venerable monks. So today, some monks are busy with their own activities at the temple. Weekends are normally busy, Saturdays, Sundays. But I'm very happy to have at least some Venerable monks and nuns for this discussion today. We have Venerable Yuttadhammo from Niagara Falls, and we have Venerable Mihintale Kamalasri from Minnesota. We have Venerable Pujapiti Santusita from Italy, and we have Venerable Jinananda from Ottawa, and we have Venerable Bhante Suddasu from New York, and we have Venerable, the most Venerable Uparatmanayaka Bhante from Washington, D.C. Then we have Venerable Bhante Sunita from Ottawa, and we have Venerable Ayya Soma from New York. We have Venerable, the most Venerable Tapovane Sutadhara Nayaka Hamdar from California. And we have Venerable Bhante Kusala from Detroit. And then we have Venerable Bhikkhuni Vimala from Chicago. And then we have Venerable Sunanto Tero from Brazil. And so we would like to welcome all of you to our unique Dhamma discussion. It's so wonderful to have your presence. As Buddha said, Samana Anancha Dasanang Etam Mangalamuttamang. Having the presence of the Venerable monks, seeing the monks is a great blessing. And also, Kalena Dhamma Sakacha Etam Mangalamuttamang, and doing the timely discussion of the Dhamma is a great blessing. And Kalena Dhamma Savanang Etam Mangalamuttamang, and listening to the Dhamma is also a great blessing. So this bi-weekly sutra discussion is actually bringing three great blessings to us Venerable monks and also to the lay people. So for past 3 weeks, actually last 3 sessions, we had great discussions on Karanimatta Sutta. First is a general discussion about the Karanimatta Sutta, And the second discussion was the personality development based on the Karanimetta Sutta. And also, last time, the last session, we had a unique discussion. All the venerable monks and nuns told the unique stories of which people loved so much. Again, that's about the personality development. And so we monks decided to have a question and answer session. I know there are lay people who have been listening to us for past 3 times. And I thought they must have some questions. And I have spoken with some venerable monks here, and they also said it would be great to have this session based on questions from the lay people. So we have received some questions from the different countries, mainly from Brazil. Venerable Sunanto, I think you have done a unique job spreading Dhamma in Brazil. Actually, they have some wonderful questions. And as you know, Venerable Sunanto is the official representative, Brazilian representative to the World Buddhist Summit, and me from Canada. And so we have met several times. So my first question, they have asked about 10 or 12 questions. My first question will be gone to Bante Suddhaso from New York, and they're saying, Venerable Sirs, how can we develop mindfulness in our daily actions, no matter how simple the action? Thank you all for the attention. This is from Lorenzo Oltramari Piaia, PR Brazil, or Cascavel, PR Brazil. So, Venerable Suddhaso.
Okay. Thank you, Bante, for inviting me to speak.
Yeah.
So to answer this question, the first thing that comes to mind is a counter question, which is I would ask the questioner, why do you want to develop mindfulness in daily life? Why do you want to have mindfulness at all times? So mindfulness itself does not necessarily lead to enlightenment. So a hunter or a soldier needs a lot of mindfulness to kill, but that doesn't lead to enlightenment, even if they're being very mindful. So the first thing I would say is to remember that mindfulness is just one out of the 8 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. And if we want to attain enlightenment, we need to have all 8 parts fully developed. So developing mindfulness in daily life is very good, as long as you're also developing the other 7 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path with equal sincerity and diligence. As for how to have mindfulness in daily life, another thing that I would say is ask yourself, what am I doing that is weakening my mindfulness? What is preventing mindfulness? So a lot of ordinary common activities, which are things that lay people do all the time, are very harmful to mindfulness. So things like watching TV, watching movies, playing video games, listening to music, reading novels, having conversations about silly things. These are all things that prevent us from being mindful all the time. They cause the mind to be very distracted and scattered. So start by removing the things that prevent mindfulness. Then you can start to pay attention to every activity that you're doing. So simply speaking, the way to develop mindfulness in daily life is whatever you're doing, pay full attention to that activity. Pay full attention to your body, the sensation of your body as it's going through the movements that you're doing. Pay full attention to whatever sensations are arising. Pay full attention to desire and aversion. Liking and disliking. So whatever reaction there is in the mind, pay attention to that. and be fully aware of whatever thoughts and emotions are flowing through the mind, but without getting involved in them. So in this way, one can start to develop mindfulness in daily activities. And it doesn't really matter what those activities are. So whether you're sweeping the floor or washing the dishes or whatever it is you're doing, if you're paying full attention to your body and your mind in this way, then your mindfulness will grow. It's just a matter of time, of ongoing effort. But the other thing also is again to remind yourself that mindfulness practice is part of the path to enlightenment. So in order to motivate ourselves to actually pay full attention to all of our experiences, we need to understand that there's a very good reason. We pay attention to all of our experiences so that we can understand how we create dukkha. In order to understand how we generate our own suffering and confusion and discomfort in each moment. So mindfulness of dukkha is actually one of the most important ways of practicing mindfulness. Be fully aware of the discomfort, displeasure that you feel in every moment. And also be mindful of how you are generating that discomfort through your own desires, through your own liking and disliking. And also be mindful of how when you let go of your desires, your liking and disliking, that then your dukkha decreases. And be mindful of how when you do wholesome things, so doing wholesome things like acts of generosity and kindness, following the precepts, being compassionate, then that causes you to be happy. And again, when you're happy and you're having a pleasant mind, then you actually want to be mindful. So I would also say, if you want to be mindful in daily life, well, practice generosity and morality. And you'll find that you actually want to be mindful. You actually want to be present with yourself because you're the kind of good person that you want to be around. So if you want to be mindful of yourself, be a good person. Be the kind of person that you want to be around, the kind of person you want to be present with at all times. And the kind of person you want to be present with is the kind who's kind and caring and friendly and generous. So be that kind of person and you'll find mindfulness gets a lot easier. Mm-hmm. So those are my thoughts. I wish you well in your practice.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Suddaso. You have beautifully explained the mindfulness, how it can be cultivated, and how important it is to reduce our own suffering. I think that's very important aspect of that you have touched, the mindfulness of dukkha. Whatever discomfort we feel in our life, and if we can become mindful of that, and being mindful of that discomfort, the dukkha will help stop growing that dukkha. And eventually we will be able to get rid of that dukkha. I think you have explained it beautifully. Thank you so much. Maybe our friends who are watching us, if you have more questions, feel free to make comments. We will take your questions, okay? And maybe, if Bhante Suddaso explained about mindfulness with respect to certain things, and if you think you need more clarification, if you think you disagree, or feel free to, open up yourself, and we will take your questions, okay? So our next question is going to Bhante Kusala from Detroit, Michigan, United States. And the question is from Luan dos Reis Ribeiro from the city of São Francisco de Paula, Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. His question is, with the steadfast advance of neural networks and artificial intelligence, could it be reached the moment in which those kinds of intelligence start identifying themselves as a self? And from that point onwards, having attachment and mental unrestlessness, and also kamma production. Thank you for your kindness. So Bhante Pusala.
So, Mr. Luan, this is an interesting question. Part of it involves predicting the future, right? In which I will be forced to give a yes or no answer. So the only prediction I can make about the future is that the future is uncertain, right? In your question, you asked about AI, the artificial intelligence. So we already have self-driving cars, we have Alexa, we have Siri, who are sometimes funny, sometimes intentionally silent, you know. Yeah. So if you ask, you know, Alexa, do you work for CIA? It shuts itself off. So, and don't ask Siri how old she is. She doesn't like those questions, just like we humans are. You know, we don't like those questions sometimes.
That actually I didn't know. I should be asking that question.
Right. So they don't like to tell the age. They already act like humans sometimes. So in the heart of Buddhism, if AI robots identify themselves as self, then they got a problem. So anything that, you know, that is identified as a self is problematic. So as you say in your question, so attachment to self lead to suffering, you know, and thus end up karmic productions, and you are bound to suffer. So if AI, artificial intelligence, is wise, I don't think they will ever identify themselves as self. So, well, artificial intelligence is all of it is about wandering mind. You know, sometimes it's information, it's papancha, all the proliferations, a lot of conclusive data, you know, targeted at producing certain functions. You know, sometimes you hear about these non-artificial intelligence objects getting possessed and doing certain things. So if robots get possessed, sometimes they may do harmful things, but we don't know whether we will ever reach to that point. I hear there is a study in New Haven in Connecticut where they focus on introducing mindfulness to, like Bhante Suddha so clearly said, mindfulness is not the only element in our path, but they are trying to introduce that to artificial intelligence. And so Bhante Dhammajiva this morning, he mentioned about, you know, when they introduce something like that, they also should see the good side and the bad side of everything. So if anything you do, whether you are introducing mindfulness or anything like self or self-awareness or attachment, we should see the bad side of it, because we humans are introducing them to these machines. So when we have some of these reasonings, we reach to, like I said earlier, some logical conclusions. That means they don't really, they don't really go with Buddhism, because Buddhism does not necessarily go with logics. It never goes with logic. It's about removing all these thoughts and data from, you know, emptying ourselves into an empty cloud, I would say. So since these robots are produced by humans, it's ultimately humans who need to be blamed for if they do anything bad, anything destructive. So I think I will say one last thing. You know, at some point I remember this professor coming to the temple and having a discussion with monks, and he argued that science, you know, any science, there are many sciences, any science does not need spirituality or religion. So then my friend monk, he asked, if somebody produces a bullet and shoots at you, is it good? He said, no, it's bad. You know, and then my friend monk, you know, asked, So why if you say it's bad, but science does not need good and bad, say religion is not needed in your sciences. So that there itself, he answered his own question that, sometimes, although ethics and morality, all these should be there with sciences that we humans produce. So this is why we need to think, not just about artificial intelligence, but also about people like Albert Einstein, who said science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind.
Mm.
So I hope I responded to your question enough, Mr. Luan, and this is open for discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kusala. You have beautifully answered that question. Actually, artificial intelligence is a very interesting subject that we see people are becoming interested in that. And emotional intelligence, artificial intelligence, and these are interesting topic. Now, with respect to the karma production, now this a friend from Brazil, Luan, has asked, does it also have a karmic production? Even like, to have karmic production, there has to be the full presence of the intention, right? It has to be, something has to be done intentionally. Then it will produce the karmic production, vipaka, or something like that. So maybe we can have more discussion on this, Mr. Luan, and if any other friends, if you need more clarification, please ask the questions. And I know there's a friend from Facebook. He's from Portland, Oregon, asked a question about mindfulness, but we will get back to that question. Mr. Adin Asia, please be patient. First, we need to answer these questions we have received previously, okay, for past 2 weeks. Just hang on. I see that question will go to Bhante Sudaso, that's in Facebook. So our next question is going to Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa, Canada. Greetings to all venerable monks and nuns. I am Filipe from Brazil, and my question is, should lay followers also read Abhidhamma and Vinaya Pitakas, or just stick to Sutta studies? Thank you all very much, with metta. Bhante Jinananda.
Thank you, Bhante Sarnapala, for the opportunity. And Philip, thank you very much for your questions. It is all about how we handle our knowledge and experience with regard to our practice based on the primary sources. I'm surprised to see these questions because we had only 3 sessions with the monks, and I think this question triggered you because I assume that you have listened to such discussions before that. And also we quoted some discourses during the last 3 sessions, and you thought that why not we could read the primary sources to get into the knowledge that monks refer. Indeed, this question is really important for monks and also lay people because we are able to read and know what exactly the Buddha and also the other monks and nuns and lay people said at the time of the Buddha. If I dive into these questions and give a very lengthy answer, that would be really good because we are all in a loop where to study about the Buddha's teaching. During the time of the Buddha, especially in the first 20 years, we don't see rules and regulations that put forward by the Buddha for monks. Actually, after the first decades of the Sasana, we can see some sort of issues coming in, and therefore Buddha recommended rules and regulation. The question we can ask, whether monks needed any rules and regulations for attaining enlightenment. No, because it is said in the text that they are in the order for enlightenment, and they did what they came for. But we can see that rules and regulation as a separate, Pitaka come into existence after the second decades, and that's how history shows us how the Vinaya come into existence. Basically, if we can understand both Dhamma and Vinaya, despite our position as bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and upasakas and upasikas, it is fine. There is nothing damage happened to us, because so long you know what exactly Buddha said in the name of Dhamma and Vinaya, really nice. But it is not, sometimes it is not required. When we look at the disciples, some disciples at the time of the Buddha, they did not know much about the teachings, but they attain to first stages of enlightenment and second stage and third and also full enlightenment. Look at the Venerable Assaji, one of the five first disciples of the Buddha. He was an arahant and met the Venerable Sariputta, then Upatissa. And what Venerable Assaji said to Upatissa then, I do not know much about it, but what I can say to you is the summarized version of what I know. And he said one stanza, and that was enough for Venerable Sariputta, then Upatissa, to attain the first stage of enlightenment. So we can see that there are indications and examples that you do not know the whole Dhamma and Vinaya, and also the later additions to Dhamma and Vinaya Abhidhamma. But in some occasion, we can see that the Buddha has uttered clearly that that my duty is to let fourfold disciples to understand the Navanga Sattusats and 9 limbs of the Buddha's teaching, and become masters on them, experience the Dhamma having understood them, and then deliver it to others successfully in order to transfer the knowledge of the Dhamma and Vinaya, and also, including Abhidhamma. Just before the Buddha attained final parinirvana, he answered to the evil one, the Mara, also the same thing. And we can see that that indication from the Buddha that as disciples, fourfold disciple, it is required for us to be a scholar in a way on Sutta and Vinaya and also Abhidhamma. Having said that, I just want to make this point that it may not be necessary again, because if you read at least 10 discourses of Majjhima Nikaya, you would get to know what exactly Buddha is. And reading the Vinaya basically is for monks and nuns, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. And depending on the level of Shraddha that lay people have, they may be not liking some monks after reading the Vinaya Pitaka, because they are all about issues and problems. But at the end, I do this statement that it is important for you to read if you have enough time and get to know what exactly those monks at the time of the Buddha did in terms of practicing Dhamma and how they struggle to hang on to the right Dhamma.
Yeah.
So a very important thing is that as a lay person or whatever person you are, if you have enough time, try to read the Dhamma. My personal point of view, start your reading the suttas based on Majjhima Nikaya, then Digha Nikaya, then other Nikayas, and look at the Vinaya Pitaka, how monks and lay people should actually behave in order to defeat the unwholesomeness, because Vinaya, the disciplinary code, is to digest the Dhamma, and it should be there definitely for monks as well as lay people. But reading Abhidhamma is a very very subtle, and perhaps you do not get what exactly these terms say, But over the course of learning and teaching and sharing with somebody who knows well, you get to know what exactly Abhidhamma means as well. So I think I must be mindful about the time as well in order to allow other monks. But this is a very good question. Phillips, if you or your friends would like to read entire Tripitaka, I'm so happy about it. But depending on your time, you must be able to catch up some important Dhamma to stop the craving and to practice, as those previous two monks said, mindfulness and other important factors, and so on. So very important thing is to feel and taste the Dhamma with whatever we can available. So that is all for now. And if you want to have a very lengthy answer, you may ask questions again through the chatting. So we'll be happy to answer those questions. Thank you.
No, thank you, Bhante Jinananda, for, I think what you really said is interesting. The Dhamma is all about pariyatti. Of course, we are on the way to Nibbana. On the way to Nibbana, we had to have all the knowledge. So the pariyatti, we can study the Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka, and all these Pitakas contain deep knowledge and insights. And Vinaya Pitaka, I think people can read as long as they don't get disappointed with the monks. Because monks and nuns, because these are typical human behaviors that we still can see. But those stories are telling us, they are giving us a message too, right? So, but as you said, we should start from the Sutta Pitaka. I also, there is a kind of suggestion I want to acknowledge from the Facebook. It says, loved Bhante Kusala's explanation on religion and science. It's best we take it to another level to discuss at this topic. Can attract our young generation. So thank you for asking that or make it that suggestion. Maybe in the future we can have another discussion about science and religion, maybe, So, and yeah, so Dhamma greetings to Venerables from Australia. Thank you for the Dhamma greetings and blessings to you from all the Venerable monks. So our next question is going to Bhante Sankicha. I think he was here. Bhante Sankicha, are you here? I know, I see you.
Yes.
Yes. Or you're here from Mars.
Yes.
Okay. It's good to see a monk from Mars. So, because you have signed up for this question, it says, Venerable members of the Noble Sangha of the Blessed One, I am Mr. Gustavo Pavanello from Mogi Mirim City in Brazil. Allow me to ask a question. Would the search for a successful professional career be a waste of time? Thank you for your kindness. Bhante Sankicha.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante. My dear Venerable Bhantes and Bhikkhunis. It's my great pleasure to join this Dhamma sharing. And thank you very much for raising that question on behalf of everybody, I think, as especially the lay people. This is a big concern, actually. It can be for many people, as they get to learn about the Dhamma, as they follow the spiritual path. Sometimes people have this concern, as they try to understand the true meaning of life, what should be our goal in life, what should be appreciating in our life the most, So it's a common question for many people. So my direct answer to that question would be yes and no. Okay. Because there are two aspects to look at this question, is that okay to work on a successful career, you know. Even can we have such goals in life, you know? I think that depends on where you are in this spiritual path, okay? When you look at the overall teachings of the Buddha, you know, Buddha was a very excellent and a perfect spiritual teacher. Therefore, we can see all the aspects of life, you know, he touched, you know, in his teachings. So therefore, the marvel of his teachings is that we have to find and maintain a very good balance in all aspects of our life. You know, looking at this question in a general perspective, you know, I'm talking about, especially as a layperson, you know, as a layperson, there are so many teachings that Buddha gives us, you know. If you are a layperson and still try to follow the Dhamma, spirituality, you know, first, you need to understand the importance of maintaining your household life, you know, lay life, you know. You have many responsibilities, you know, obligations in your life, you know, because we know some people, especially lay people, when they try to follow the spirituality, you know, try to meditate, you know, go on retreats, sometimes they mess up, you know, they forget about their obligations, their responsibilities. So they end up in so many problems, you know, conflicts. So they give up eventually. So they have not been able to enjoy the Dhamma, you know, appreciate the spirituality. So there's nothing wrong in the Dhamma or the spirituality, but your choices that you made, you know, how you try to incorporate the teachings and practice into everyday life. That is the problem. So for that aspect, you know, Buddha really appreciated being successful as a lay person is very important. That way you can easily systematically practice the Dhamma. You can dedicate your time. And it's all about being smart, I think, you know, learning how to incorporate the teachings, the Dhamma into your daily practice. Okay, there are so many things that we can still practice, right? Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, even Dana, Sila, Bhavana, this generosity, morality, even practicing of meditation, all these things can be practiced as a lay person. You know, basically we know when you get to learn the Dhamma, we can attain even the third level of attainments of enlightenment, which is the anagami, non-returner level, even being a lay person. You know, as a successful lay person, you can practice the Dhamma, cultivate the Dhamma even up to that level. There's no any obligations, but you have to be very smart, you know, applying the teachings, following the right directions. You know, my answer, yes, was actually, you know, that depends on where you are in the spiritual path. You know, there you may get to a point that you find these things are just waste of time. You know, when you think about the true meaning of life, according to the teachings, how dangerous this circle of birth and death, you know, to be born again and again. So in that point, you want to try to get rid of this whole mass of samsaric existential suffering. So there you may need that extreme need of giving up everything and dedicate your full time to the spiritual practice. So it's a personal choice, definitely, you know. Otherwise, if you decide that just from the superficial information, just by looking at other people, it would not really help you, you know. So therefore, I really appreciate if we can find the balance, you know, in all aspects of our life and learn how to incorporate the Dhamma into our daily life. So that way you can enjoy the Dhamma, still you can be a very successful person as a household person. Okay.
Yeah, that's the beautiful explained, Bhante Sankitja, as you emphasized, having the good balance in all aspects of life is very important in searching for a successful professional career and also being smart. And I think it's anything is possible. We human beings are very intelligent, very smart, but everything depends on what are you looking for. Bhante Sankitja, this reminds me something that I heard from one of my professors from the University of Toronto. He asked a question from all the students, but he asked in a very bad way. I don't want to be him, I don't want to act like him. But the very polite way of asking that question is, what is it that you want? What are you looking for? That's the question.
Right. Yeah.
This professor played with this question with the students for 2 hours. And every time a student says, okay, I want this, I want that, and he would say, no, that's not what you're looking for.
And the other important thing is that, Bhante, especially for the beginners, when they get into the practice, we should never forget that Dhamma is everywhere, right? Dhamma is everywhere. You can learn so many things, being a successful person, lay person, being a monk. Dhamma is everywhere. You learn so many things from living a household life. This happens only when you get to know the Dhamma, learn the Dhamma, and try to practice it. So that's where you begin to appreciate all these things instead of running away from all these things. You begin to see the beauty of everything, seeing the Dhamma through all these things.
I remember him saying to me personally, he said, Bhante, what you're looking for is not here in the university. What you're looking for, you already have it. Go and do Vipassana, he said. He was a very interesting prof, by the way. So thank you for answering that questions. Our next question is going to Venerable Ayya Soma from New York, USA. The question is this: Venerable members of the Mahasangha, I am Mrs. Tairine Silva from Mogi Mirim City in Brazil. My question is how to deal with self-esteem. Thank you for your kindness. Venerable Ayya Soma.
Thank you, Bhante, for inviting me to answer this question. Well, I would say that what comes to mind is, first of all, to reflect on where is the problem. So, of course, when we talk about the lack of self-esteem, I assume the person is referring to, we are in the realms of dukkha, so in the realms of suffering. But where is sort of the voice that is creating this kind of problem coming from? Is it internal or is it external? How do we perceive it? So perhaps it's internal, and we have, it's ourselves that is actually telling us we're not that good, or we're not good enough. So I would say we can answer this question with another question. Good in what? Fundamentally. And sometimes we can have a problem of self-esteem, perhaps in our spiritual practice. So we don't feel that we're good meditators. We can go to these retreats. I remember going to Bhavana Society with some friends for a retreat, and I was looking at them and I was like, wow, that one is in first jhana, the other one is in second jhana, the other one is in third jhana, the other one is fourth jhana, and I'm here like, with all these thoughts in the mind, overcome by suffering. There is no end to the suffering. I'm really the worst here. And we can think that that perhaps is the conceit of inferiority, but I would say that actually it's the conceit of superiority in the way that we think that we are the worst of everyone. We're superior to everyone in how bad we are at spiritual practice. Like we are the worst meditators, we are the worst, at samadhi, we're the worst at panya. But it's so refreshing actually to, when one reads the suttas, to see that, this sort of sense of inadequacy is as old as, as old as the time of the Buddha, for sure, but since discoverless beginning. And you see all like in the Tirigata or the Tiragata, where the elder bhikkhunis and bhikkhus all share, their struggles in the path, and how I'm actually currently translating the Trigatha, and there are these beautiful verses of the elders going, I've been, practicing for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and my mind is still a mess. There is no wisdom. I'm not realizing this path. But then something happens. And it's a breakthrough, and there is realization, there is progress. And so we can take, at least I take these stories as, getting me out from this conceit of superiority of being the worst at everything, rather going, oh, actually, I am really not that special. So I am a big bundle of greed, hatred, and delusion like everyone else, and like everyone else in the past who has honestly been committed to following the path of liberation and followed the instructions of the Buddha. I am sure I'm going to attain awakening, because I have true faith in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and because other people before me have followed this path and attained those results. Then, if it's not spiritual, then perhaps we can have worldly, issues with self-esteem. And actually connected a little bit to Bhante Sankicha's story, kind of understanding also what our priority is. So for example, I used to be, of course, living in New York City as a layperson. So very much driven towards professional career ambitions. And, I got a lot of dukkha of getting what I wanted. I didn't mean a lot of things. There's the good dukkha of not getting what we want, but there's also the dukkha of getting what we want. And so we can end up, kind of accumulating a lot of that dukkha through our professional career ambitions. And so instead of trying to be perhaps the best accountant or the best musician or the best whatever it is, perhaps we can shift into being the best in generosity, the best in kindness, the best at offering dana at the temple. Yeah, wonderful. Great. When we read, when we recite, actually here at Empty Cloud Monastery, we recite every morning the incredible qualities actually of the bhikkhunis in the past and the foremost disciples of the Buddha. And it's not that, we read like, oh, we recite the foremost at selling things in Manhattan, or the foremost at MBA, Master of Business Administration, but rather, we chant Kema, the foremost disciple in great wisdom, or Bhikkhuni Sona, the foremost in energy, or Bhikkhuni Sigalamata, the foremost in devotion through faith. Now that is inspiring. That is something that we can do, and then creates also the grounds for us to recollect our own goodness, which delights the mind. And there's no room for self-esteem issues. There's only room for, yes, I am a good person, pat on the back. Yes, I've offered so much food to the venerables. If I'm a lay person and I go to the temple every day, go to the temple, and then you're like, oh yes, I'm a really wonderful person. So lots of good things that we can, generate to counteract that internal voice that can say, that can point us in the wrong direction. But sometimes, the voice can be external. And so perhaps it can be things that other people tell us that then can produce some, lack of self-esteem, lack of, or thinking that we're not good enough in something. Unfortunately, in some Buddhist circles, there are some really terrible things that can can be shared, like, for example, that it's bad karma to be a woman, or that women can't attain awakening. And actually, like, the Buddha never said that. When we see it in the suttas, it's mara. So where I actually get my name from, Bhikkhuni Soma, from both the Tirigata and the Bhikkhuni Samyutta, there is mara that actually, while Bhikkhuni Soma, the Arahant, is meditating, goes there and he's like, what are you doing there? You know, this is not thing for women. Women can't really do much with their two-fingered wisdom. And Bhikkhuni Soma turns around and immediately sees Mara, immediately recognizes that these are the words of Mara. And she says, but does womanhood have anything to do at all? When the mind is concentrated well and sees right through Dhamma, one who thinks I'm a man or I'm a woman or anything at all is fit for Mara to address. So in the same way, if we have these like voices, you know, external, it can be, you know, not, of course, gender-based, but also we can be an immigrant in different countries. So people telling us that there's something wrong with that, or race or class, we can go, I see you, Mara. I don't need to be bothered with this. We can actually recollect the Dhamma from the Buddha, like in the Vasita Sutta, that the Buddha encourages us to reflect that all of these are only conventions, whether it's gender, whether it's class, whether it's race, whatever it is, it's conventions. And by actions, he says, one is a Brahmin. So by action, one is a supreme, incredible being. So we can perfect ourselves once again, like as we were saying, dealing with our internal voice, we can perfect all the qualities of mind. And by action, then we are really incredible. We can become really incredible beings, and we can recollect our own goodness.
Yeah.
No, so what comes to mind.
Yeah. No, thank you, Ayya Soma, for beautifully answering that question in a very interesting way. And I think it's very important for people to understand the low self-esteem could hurt you, and it could, excuse me, it could block you from progressing. But the high self-esteem also could hurt you, but it also could be of motivation. But it depends on if you intention and the motivation and the inspiration. And I'm also kind of concerned, thinking about this, like, you know, self-esteem. Is it referring to the mana? You know, like we have, I'm greater than you, I'm equal to you, I'm not good enough, you know. So this kind of the mana also could hurt us. But if we can take this as a motivation, as you said, like this monks, actually nuns who practice meditation, and they have become enlightened. My goodness, you know, I also want to be like them. I think that kind of self-esteem is very important for us to achieve our goal. So thank you, Ayya Soma, for beautifully answering that question. And our next question is going to Bhante Sunita from Ottawa, Canada. The question is, Venerable Sirs, please allow me to ask the following question. How can we, as Buddhists, deal with the present situation of pandemic about those who are blind related to the reality and cannot see the sad reality we are facing? Thank you for your kindness.
Thank you very much, Bhante, for inviting me to this very beautiful session. Venerable Bhantes and Bhikkhunis, I'm very happy to join this beautiful Dhamma discussion as we learn and teach at the same time. As I always said that, especially during the pandemic, we learn together and we grow together. During this pandemic, we feel like that we disconnected, but we feel we are more connected with most important thing and most necessary things in our life. So better to disconnect from unnecessary things here. So as Bhante Sarnapala asked me to give my thoughts as a reply to the question from Daniel Tosi from Brazil, I would like to take a few minutes for that. So, firstly, I would like to bring your attention to this very special, to the very special verse that can be found in Mahaparinibbana Sutta and also Parinibbana Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. Anicchāvata sankhara uppadavaya dhammino uppajjitva nirujjanti tesang upasamosukho. So all things are impermanent. They arise and pass away. Having arisen, they come to an end. They are coming to peace is bliss. So this verse was uttered by Sakka, the king of the Devas, just after the Parinibbana of the Buddha. So we almost all are blind to related to the reality, as Daniel said. Yes, we are blind as we still have ignorance. That is the one. That is one of the 3 root causes of suffering. So, though Daniel said people cannot see the sad reality, I would say we can see the reality, but we don't want to see it and we don't want to face it. That is the problem. We all want to escape from the reality. And we all like to see beautiful things, to taste the very tasty things, and to hear very soothing things, feel and touch beautiful things that brings us pleasure and joy. And we like to be in the beautiful illusionary dreams always. That is the problem. So we are always trying to do something that we never can do, that never can be accomplished. That is escaping from the reality. From the day we born and from the day we start our existing in the samsara, we all have been experiencing sicknesses, old age, decaying, and death. Also, departing from people and things that we like to be engaged with and associate with, people whom we don't like to associate. That is the reality of this existence. So we need to take a break and pause to think of all these things. Then only we can open our mind to the reality so that we can be at peace. So friends, in terms of the pandemic, I can say pandemic is not a new thing. It has been existing in this universe, in this world, in this earth, on this earth. So being sick, old age, death is a part of our existence. We have to accept it. Buddha explained in Dhamma Cakkappavattana Sutta, sorrow, lamentation, and pain, distress, and despair, and also association with the unbeloved ones, the separation from the loved ones, not getting what is wanted is also stressful and suffering. And everything is part of life, part of this existence. We have to accept this nature. Everything is supporting us to realize the real nature and the purpose of our life, not always disturb, right? Prevent us from our happiness. So in order to gain ultimate peace and happiness, we have to realize those things, the fleeting nature of the nature and the reality. So we need to open our eyes to see what is really happening around us. And also we need to open our heart and mind to see what is happening within us, right? Within our body and also in our mind. How can we deal with this kind of difficulties is very important, as Daniel asked. And also, it's very important question we all should ask from ourselves too. Taking breaks and pauses amidst this amidst of daily activities are needed to see the fleeting nature of everything. Not only our life, not only in this world. So needed to become a monk. No need to become a monk or nun. No need to go to a monastery to see the reality of nature, to understand the nature, to gain happiness. You can take pauses and observe your thoughts and your feelings and emotions and the nature of your body as well. So that is called mindfulness always. So we have to apply those things. Then only we can be at peace at any given moment. Buddha never escaped from the reality. That is a wonderful thing. Only by facing this reality, he realized this fleeting nature and the reality, and he found the best ways to gain peace and happiness. He never encouraged us, or he never encouraged his disciples to escape from reality. He always encouraged us face the reality, understand the reality in order to gain peace and happiness. That is what Buddha always encourages us. So people in today's society, I would say, they think always everything is permanent and they are eternal, and they think that they are never get sick and they never die and never die. So this notion of permanent make them egoistic, and this egoistic mind brings them suffering, bring us suffering, stress, and also depression, and also dissatisfaction. That is the problem. That is where we are now. And though they know, even though they know that they are changing every moment, and though they are experiencing this impermanent nature moment by moment, they are not ready to accept it. And so as a Buddhist, or as Buddhist or non-Buddhist, we all, disregarding all religions, faith and beliefs and national or social status, and we all subject to get sick, to an old age and decay and also death. We all and everyone around us and everything around us are subject to change. So here there are a few steps we can apply how to deal with this problem. So as a first step, I would say, first recognize the problem you are struggling with now and accept as you are, accept the problem as it is, and also accept you as you are. And the second step, as a second step, we can reflect what can I do about it? So observe yourself and your inner and outer strength and skill. If you can do anything about it, do it. Or if you cannot do it, let it go. So as a third step, we can apply it. If you can do something, apply your skill and methods and ways to, and you already you have recognized and understood, and start to work on it. And also, if not, we have to accept there are many things that we cannot control in this world. So we have to accept those things, acknowledging what we are powerless over is actually very helpful. So in this way, we can let go of whatever we have to let go of, and also cultivate all positive qualities and skills that help us to gain peace and happiness, and developing our mind to the highest level of to the highest level that we can develop in this moment, in this given moment, in this very life. So I hope this kind of understanding and skills will help us to deal with this kind of difficulties. And thank you very much, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, that's amazing how you answered this question. You know, recognize the problem. I think this pandemic thing, this is not the first time. As Buddha said, the entire cycle of life, the samsara, is characterized with all this birth, aging, sickness, death, and this unpleasant event brings a lot of sufferings. And of course, this is not the first time. In a pandemic that took place in the time immemorial. And I think, as I said, face the reality, transform the reality, and change the bad thing to good thing, negative thing to positive thing. I think this is the wisdom that we all need. Thank you so much for, and also, as you said, learn together, grow together during this pandemic. I think this is what we are doing. And also, I just want to, there's, I think when Aya Soma was replying to that self-esteem, one friend from Australia made a kind of comment. I will be meditating for 3 months this year during Vasa at Ajahn Brahm's Lay Meditation Center. Can Venerables give me any advice to make my retreat a success? I'm 72 years old and life has passed at the blink of an eye. I have been a meditator for 40 years, but I'm not satisfied with my progress. I want to make a great effort as death is very much on my mind. And I think we will be, if we can manage time, we will come back to that question. So I just wanted to acknowledge that question from Australia. Our next question is going to Bhante Yutadammo from Niagara Falls, Canada. Again, this question is from Australia, from Ashwini, Australia. I have a few questions for your upcoming Zoom talk on March 27. What is the best approach to get to stream entry? What are the specific actions one must take in daily life to get to stream entry? What Buddhist teachings or sutta should one learn to understand the approach to take to get to stream entry? Bhante Yutadammo.
Thank you, Hamdaro Bhante. Thank you, Aswini, for your question. Thank you all for being here. This is a great thing. So I'll try to be quick. The first thing I would say...
By the way, is there a quick way to stream entry?
The shortcut. I'll teach the shortcut. Okay. No, there's not. No, what we have to understand about this question is this is a very, very important, significant topic, something that should be treated with severity. You shouldn't treat this sorry, I don't mean to I appreciate Bhante's humor and lightness, but to understand this topic and to get an answer, you have to understand the importance of what you're asking. You're asking about something that no one has ever experienced before, unless now they are a sotapanna or higher. This is something out of all the things that we have experienced in the rounds of samsara. And that's uncountable lifetimes. We've been good people, we've been bad people, we've been animals, we've been devas, we've been brahmas probably. We've been everything, but we've never been a sotapanna. This is something unfathomable. You don't fall into it. You don't become a sotapanna just because you got lucky. This isn't like winning the lottery. It's far, far more rare than that. Far, far more difficult than that. So the best approach, the first thing about your approach should be to understand the significance of what you're asking. what you're asking is, how do I experience the cessation of suffering? How do I experience nibbana? How do I experience the super mundane states of what we call the path and fruition? The fruition of the Buddhist life. A Sotapanna will not be born more than 7 more times. They won't, in the countless lifetimes they've had in samsara, there will only be maximum 7 more. It's a very, very special, you can't even say how special it is. It's an incredible thing. And the second thing about the approach you should take is, if you're really sincere about it, because of how significant a thing it is, the Buddha said you should act as though your head is on fire. He said you should act as though there's a knife at your throat. If your head is on fire, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, well, maybe on the weekends I'll address that issue, but during the week I'm busy, so my head is on fire, that's okay? Or you say, well, maybe this evening, this morning I'm busy, my head is on fire, that's okay? No. If there's a knife at your throat, or if your head is on fire, the Buddha said, this is how you should act for the overcoming of wrong view, sensual desire, and so on. That's the best approach. Now, you can take other approaches. You don't have to be so sincere and so serious about it. And you see, in the time of the Buddha, there were people who, like Visakha, who became a Sotapanna when she was 7 years old. We had a story on here earlier, someone talking about becoming a Sotapanna. We have, in the first discourse of the Buddha, we have Kondanya becoming a Sotapanna, the first Sotapanna, the first follower of the Buddha, just by listening to the Buddha's teachings. And so you can take that to mean that it's actually something that can occur without, maybe even without a lot of effort. But I think rather what we should understand, especially from the examples that we see, when I read the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, I didn't become a Sotapanna. There's something missing. There's something that I have to do, that I am lacking. Because when I read I've read a lot of suttas, and reading those suttas was not the answer. So you should understand that there's something very significant that needs to be done that you've never ever done before. The second question about specific actions you should take in your daily life to become a Sotapanna. I want to stress that it's easy to misunderstand, based on this question, the way to become a Sotapanna, because in one sense it has nothing to do with your daily life. Your daily life refers to activities in a mundane realm, activities in the conceptual realm, dealing with people, places, things, concepts, entities, not dealing with ultimate reality. What you have to do is convert your daily life into ultimate reality. You have to see seeing as seeing, hearing as hearing. You have to understand nama rupa, meaning that I don't mean to be mysterious or esoteric, body and mind, the physical and mental aspects of everything. When you're eating, that has to become the experience of tasting with the physical and the mental. And the third question, with regards to which Buddhist teachings or suttas should you learn to understand the approach? Now, it's a good question, because that's really all you can get out of the suttas, is an understanding of the approach. The suttas themselves, against what you might believe when you read some of the stories, you can't become enlightened just by reading the suttas. Anya Kondanya didn't become enlightened just because the Buddha was talking. He became enlightened because countless lifetimes ago, he made a determination in the sasana of another Buddha to become the first. He made a determination. He gave a gift of the first rice, and he made a determination. And since that time, he's been working. That's how long it took him. So I will give some recommendations here in the time I have, but I will then stress something else, that the limitations, and I'll tell a story as well if I have time. So I would recommend, if you want to learn about the approach, to focus on the teachings that are most core and most related to the experience and the shift that you need to undergo, where you start looking at things from the point of view of ultimate reality. There are 3 very good talks that the Buddha gave, and you can see this core and central nature of them by their position in the timeline. The first discourse is the teaching that started the Dhamma rolling. It is the first teaching to allow someone to understand the Buddha's asana. It's the instruction on the Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths. Now, if it enlightens you, that's great. Reading that sutta, that would be wonderful. I appreciate that. But if it doesn't, what it does is it reminds you of what you need to accomplish. Many people skip over the Four Noble Truths thinking, okay, 4, we have suffering, the cause of suffering. But in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, there's 12. There's 12 parts to it. Suffering is to be understood fully, to be faced, as Sunita, I think, was the one who said. Wonderful, Bhante. Sunita, I appreciate that. Sati, what is the quality of sati? To confront. You have to confront your experiences, confront suffering, and so on. Read that sutta. The second sutta, the Anattalakkhana Sutta, the 5 aggregates, non-self, impermanent suffering, non-self. This is core, central things. And not exactly the third sutta, but sort of the third big sutta is the Adittapariyaya Sutta, which talks about the 6 senses. Of course, the 6 senses and the 5 aggregates. At each of the 6 senses, the 5 aggregates arise. So learning and understanding what this means as a basis for meditation practice. Finally, I would say you can't go wrong with the Satipatthana Sutta. It's widely respected, and it's called the Ekayana Magga. And in the end of it, the Buddha says, if you practice this way for 7 years, put aside 7 years, he goes down to 7 days. If you really practice it, like your head is on fire, you will either become an anagami or an arahant. So sotapanna is not unrealistic in this practice. But the last thing I will say is that you can't rely on being like Sariputta, where you hear young Kinchi, what did he say? No, what was the teaching? Ye dhamma hetu bhava yesang dhammang tathagatahu. You can't rely on hearing that and becoming a Sotapanna. Sariputta, this was, how long and how much work did Sariputta put in to get to that point? That's what you have to focus on. We have a very popular and very well-known story of Tucca-Potila. Tucca-Potila knew all of the Buddha's teachings. His name was Potila, which means book. And he thought of himself as a real book. He had all the Buddha's teachings. He went to see the Buddha. The Buddha said, oh, here comes Tucca-Potila. Tucca means empty. Right? Remember the story of the novice? He said, my hand is not Tucca, Bhante. He said, it's not empty. Well, the Buddha called Potila Tucca. He said, empty book. Oh, there goes empty book. And he was so ashamed. He went and he put himself under the tutelage of a novice. He went to a monastery and he asked the abbot to teach, and the abbot wouldn't teach and said, oh, I'm busy. But what he meant was, you have too much ego. And so he wouldn't teach him. And he finally had to put himself on, he sent him, you go see the vice abbot. The vice abbot wouldn't teach him. The second monk, none of the monks, all arahants, none of them would teach him. I mean, they sent him to go and practice with a 7-year-old novice who was also an arahant, who was down at the pond. And so he goes to the pond and the novice doesn't tell him anything. He says, okay, but I'm just a novice. You have to promise to do what I say because, you want me to be your teacher. I'm only a novice. I promise, absolutely. He says, go run into the pond. He doesn't teach him anything. He says, run into the pond. And he runs into the pond. Okay, come out of the pond. Come out. He comes out of the pond. Go into the pond. He sends him back, running back and forth, until finally he's in the middle of the pond, treading water, and the novice says, imagine there was an anthill with 6 holes and a lizard in the anthill. If you want to catch the lizard, what do? Bhotila thinks, he says, well, you cover up 5 of the holes and you watch the 6th hole. And when the lizard come out, you catch it. And the novice says, this is my lesson to you. You have to close the five senses and watch the mind. Whenever the mind comes out, you catch the mind. He taught him about reality, about practice. He taught him about himself. And Bhotila heard this and he made the shift. He changed. And he became an enlightened. I think Arahant, no? He realized the Dhamma.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. It's a very good topic. I mean, one thing, you can't fixate on becoming a Sotapanna. You have to focus on the practice. But this is it. This is important to talk about, because if we don't talk about the core and the goal of the Buddha's teaching, we will lose it. No? Yeah. So thank you for the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Yuttadhammo. And of course there is no quick way to enlightenment or Sotapanna. Maybe there is. All conditions have to be right, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Of course, we have sutras where they say, after listening to the Buddha's teaching, some are becoming Sotapanna, some are becoming Sakadagami, some are becoming Anagami, some are Arahant. Some actually were satisfied, some were not satisfied. They just thank you and they left. So anyways, it's an interesting topic. I hope Ashini got the gist of this, the beautiful answer given by Yuttadhammo Bhikkhu. And I know Bhante Kamalasri also wants to add something, but is it going to take time? I know I'm also very being mindful of the time. We have another question for Venerable Vimala Bhikkhuni. Bhante Kamalasri, I can give you 2 minutes.
Reverends, monks and nuns, I think Yuttadhammo gave the perfect answer for that. But the one thing I want to add, the best thing is mentioning about the portal also. Please empty your mind with the idea of attending Sotapanna and stop making image or imagine about Sotapanna and focus your mind to the all of defilement which are in your own mind and try to eliminate them until last defilement. That's the way. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bhante Kamalasri. That's a beautiful short answer given to this question, and I personally greatly appreciate that. So our next question is actually from Canada. It's going to Venerable Bhikkhuni Vimala in Chicago. The question is, some people misunderstand loving kindness with romantic love. Please explain. Are these two the same or different? Bhikkhuni Vimala.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. When we think about mettā, we should think of the translation. I think of mettā to be friendliness. And maitri is the Sanskrit word that means friend, friendliness. And metta in Pali is friend, and mettā comes from that. So when we think about our mettā practice, we're thinking about developing that quality in our minds of approaching the world with that attitude of friendliness and a kind of unconditional friendliness, and maybe loving. No, I think using the word love is dangerous when we talk about mettā, for this very reason this question comes up. So if we think about it as friendliness, and I also like the translation goodwill. So if we think of romantic love, we're really moving into a not good area. Romantic love is one. It's very conditional. There are a lot of conditions on romantic love, and it's also there's a lot of if we get the two confused, mettā and romantic love, it completely can take someone's practice off track, and it can become obsessing about the person. So even if they're we in typical loving kindness practices, we think about our loved ones. So if we're thinking of someone we're romantically involved with, then that can just become a whole session of thinking about that person physically, romantically, with desire, or trying to manipulate that person, trying to get that person to want to love us, or to try to, in our minds, start trying to create that person to be a loved one. And so I think, I remember one of the first teachers who told me, oh, you just don't even practice mettā for someone you're romantically involved in. And I don't think that's the correct answer, but I think it's something that we have to have a lot of practice and have developed some good qualities in our practice, not to get romantic love in there connected in with our mettā practice. Because you can eventually, with enough maturity and wisdom, you can eventually send mettā to someone, I'm assuming someone you're romantically involved with. But when we're not really clear about what we're doing and what our mettā practice is, it can become, I think, kind of a really bad detour and a really bad route. And that quality of mettā is us developing in our own minds that attitude of friendliness to all other beings. And so if we're using our mind to start thinking about and visualize and try to obtain love from someone, which we might call romantic love, then it's really the opposite of what mettā would be. So I'd advise someone to be careful with it and to grow in their practice and to grow in their understanding of mettā, and not, it's like playing with fire. And not to have any, be really clear about what they're looking at within themselves.
Yeah.
Can leave it there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's interesting how you put it. You know, love is one thing and mettā is something else. But I think it's a translation where we have to be mindful of how we are translating this word mettā used by the Buddha, right? And English word love has different meaning. And when we talk about love, maybe it's a romantic love that you're talking about. I'm in love with someone. And that I'm in love with someone is going to end up with a lot of hurts, a lot of sufferings. But the purpose of mettā is not about hurting. It's all about bringing comfort, wishing happiness. And
right. It doesn't have to end or change.
Yeah, so, and also I really loved what you said. Mettā is a goodwill. You know, it's a friendship, and the friendliness as a goodwill. Goodwill, the opposite of ill will, which is anger, right? So thank you for beautifully answering that question. And now I think it's almost the time. And so I know Bhante Jinananda also wants to answer a question, but I'm afraid that we won't have enough time for that. It's almost 7:30 now. But we can have just 1 or 2 more minutes just to give an opportunity to Bhante Jinananda to answer this question. You see, oh yeah, here. I said, what exactly should we do when we extend loving kindness to all living beings? I know that other beings do not feel my loving kindness at all. So is this only an individual training? Bhante Jinana, do you have 2 minutes?
Okay, Bhante. So this question is important. I think the one who posed this question did not hear the 2 or 3 discussion. Anyway, we have answered these questions during the past 3 discussions, but I like to tell that it is an individual training, not only mettâ training, but the other trainings are also individual. But the question is that when we comes to extend the loving kindness to all living beings, how we could do that, and do and the second part of the question is that whether the other people know this, and the question itself says that he's in the opinion that other people do not know about my personal practice. It is an individual training basically, but when we do something like that individually, it comes out with our words and actions. Look at the Buddha, look at the venerable monks and people. They have full of loving kindness in their mind, and when they talk to people, it comes out with, and then the whole environment becomes inclined to that person. If you look at the Mettanisansa Sutta, it is very clear that you become a magnet-like person when you have loving kindness, and everybody likes you, and even non-human beings. So it affects to the society, the other people in a different way. It is right that you practice loving kindness alone, individually, but when it comes out, it is affecting to the whole universe, for sure. So in order to have loving kindness, we have discussed those 15 factors in the sutta, and then you can be a universal friend to and have these wonderful things for other people. So that's the answer, I think, for this question with this 2 minutes. But I just want to tell that if you read about Kakachupama Sutta and other suttas where loving kindness is highly emphasized, you would definitely get how this very important factor come into influential level and also beneficial for others. So basically, this is what I can say within these 2 minutes. Bhante.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Jinana. I know these are great questions, and these are, dear friends, these are highly educated Buddhist monks who received the monastic education in their own countries, and also these are the monks and nuns who got their secular education and higher education in this part of the world, in the United States, in Canada, in the Western universities, and they can handle these questions beautiful. They are well versed in the Dhamma, well versed in the modern science, and the only thing is we don't have much time, and of course this requires more time to have more productive discussion. But whatever the answers given by these learned Buddhist monks and nuns, and I think this is amazing. It actually gives me a lot of strength to continue this bi-weekly sutta discussion, and for the great benefit of everyone. And so I know we received some questions from our friends, but we don't have time to answer those questions. Maybe in coming days, we will touch on those questions. And so before we finish this sutta discussion, I would like to respectfully invite Bhante Suttadhara from California to recite Ovada Patimokkha. If Bhante Suttadhara, Ovada Patimokkha.
Thank you all, Venerable monks and nuns, for this great contribution to understand the Dhamma. So may all of you be well, happy, and peaceful. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada Sachitta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Khanti paramang tapoti tikha nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha nahi pabbajito parupaghati amano hoti parang vihetayanto anupagato anupavado patimokhecha sangvaro mattanyutacha bhattasming panthancha sayanāsanang adhichittecha ayogo etang buddhana sasanang.
Thank you, Bhante Sutradhara, for beautifully chanting that key teachings of the Buddha, known as the Ovada Patimokkha. And our friends must be wondering as to what's the meaning of this. But this also requires another sutra discussion to talk about all the principles we have recited together. Maybe in one of the bi-weekly discussions, we will talk about this. And my gratitude and respect to all the venerable monks and nuns for sacrificing your time for this unique bi-weekly sutra discussion. And this is actually bringing a lot of peace and comfort to all our friends who are watching us. And also, this is also during this pandemic, we are growing together, as Bhante Sunita said, we are growing together, learning together, transforming pain to happiness, the bliss. And so I'm very grateful to you. Thank you so much. And we will meet you in 2 weeks' time. So thank you. Good night from Canada. Bye-bye.
Thank you.